Hi, this is Mehdi,
Hey, this is Fran.
and this is Total Tactics Football. So, Fran, how'd you like that result today?
It was a fantastic win for Real Madrid, to be honest. A 2-0 win versus a side that didn't seem very hungry for the game, and a much easier win than the last two for Real Madrid.
How many wins away are you from getting that title?
So yeah, the point margin has been cut down to four again, but in reality, it is a 5 point lead. So Real Madrid can still lose a game and can still draw a game.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. That's a good lead to have at this moment, and I don't. It doesn't look like you're gonna be losing anytime soon.
Absolutely. So I mean, when you think about it today, we actually played a very weak side, right? We had Ramos out, we had Carvajal out. Instead, we put Militao on and we put Vazquez playing at right back. So on paper, it looks defensively weaker.
Was this due to the overaccumulation of yellow cards for both Carvajal and Ramos?
Yeah, that's right. So you could see both of them dressed in formal clothing today in the stadium as opposed to substitutes clothing.
Hey man, they dare to support their team, So you want Ramos there on the side of the pitch, or at least on the. So I mean, you said there was a change of the lineup, but Zidane went with Rodrygo and Asensio again, but he tried something different now this time, didn't he? He went with Asensio playing on the right compared to the last game, and Rodrygo on the left. What did you make of that?
He did actually. So yeah, as you rightly mentioned, Rodrygo played a game on the right. I think the reason why Zidane opted for Asensio on the left was because the kind of position he was taking on when he scored his first goal back from injury was a position where he was able to kind of find the cutback and score. But now he's put both of them almost as inverted wingers where they can both cut inside. And it's also been an eye opener for me because Rodrigo played a fantastic game today on the left.
What I mean, so this is interesting because now you've already have Hazard on that position. You've got Vinicius, and Rodrigo can also play that position. And there's so much talent and depth in there. What did you feel like the differences for Rodrigo's performance on his left and on the right side? I mean, we know he performs good on the right as well.
Definitely, I think how used to he is from dribbling from the left. So one of the confusion points for many Real Madrid fans who actually followed Vinicius and Rodrigo was that they were both left wingers when they played in the Brazilian league. And as you rightly mentioned, we have a lot of left wing depth. But you can see it today. Rodrigo prefers to play in that position. He was actually able to complete a lot of successful dribbles today.
Well, I mean, yeah, like the numbers are good. Like he had attempted 10 and he successfully managed 6. That's a very high number for people who are not attempting that many dribbles in a game. You average see like 4 or 5, and you probably see maybe 80% of those that complete it. But those are very high numbers, and he's constantly a thorn for the fullbacks. And I feel that's something now Zidane's going to be starting to think. Like if he's performing good right now on the left, and Vinicius and Hazard, Hazard maybe with a little bit struggling with his injury. We'll touch on that later. And Vinicius maybe not the best option for Zidane at the moment. Maybe Rodrigo will get a longer shot in this position, like in the team till the end of the season. What do you think?
It's interesting. So Vinicius still seems like a very physical player. He's able to beat most people on. So it might be the case where Zidane looks to start with, let's say, Hazard or Rodrigo and plays Vinicius as a sub because he's able to kind of oppress a lot of the defenders who are tired. And Rodrigo and Hazard are both players who are more easily able to comfortably dribble through their opponents early.
Definitely, I feel like with having Rodrigo, it helps a bit more control the shape of the team and the possession. And while Vinicius, as you mentioned, with his physicality, it would be frightening to have someone like Vinicius come off the bench in the 70th minute, running full blitz at your defense. That is a frightening thought. But I mean, the one man who keeps shining alongside Ramos was Karim Benzema. What'd you make of his performance today?
Absolutely. I mean, Karim had a fantastic game. He was able to link up the spaces, and you can just see how selfless he is as a player. In the goal where Asensio scored, he squares it right to Asensio for an easy tap in. When in reality, he's chasing the Pichichi trophy, and he could have scored that goal himself too.
That's incredible. That's incredible for a striker who's he completed 54 total passes and he was involved all over the pitch and he's involved with 5.1% of Real Madrid's all possession. Those are insane numbers. This shows you how valuable it is to come. He comes deep. Sometimes there's an argument where he comes too deep
Yeah.
and you want him rather on top. But in games like this, when it's sometimes harder to break the team down, or maybe the goal isn't coming, you want someone to be able to come and link up with the rest of the team to be able to build some sort of momentum towards the attack. And I feel like today, again, like you said, Benzema, with he's chasing for the Pichichi trophy, he's still selfless enough, and it's just part of this game. What makes him great is that he links up with everybody. He's managed to create this foundation for everyone else. He allows the best out of them, and we've seen that over the time with Bale and Ronaldo, and hopefully with Hazard in the future. But he brings out the best of Vinicius, Rodrigo, and Asensio.
Definitely. I mean, I'd like to give a lot of credit to Rodrigo for Asensio's goal because Rodrigo was able to push forward when there was a second ball recovery from Modric and he laid it on.
Yep.
Rodrigo made that key pass to Benzema in space. And, the key thing about Benzema is he's able to create so many more chances for your team. We had, realistically opportunities for Benzema to get 3 or 4 assists today. And he was only given the chance to take one, but a fantastic performance. And I think a game of two halves, really.
That seems to be sort of the theme since the post lockdown. You've not had the best of starting halves, but somehow Zidane goes into halftime, gives a speech, tells them what they need to do, and I feel like maybe it's a tactical thing as well. Don't you think, or would you not agree with me?
Yeah, I agree with you. So when you look at the first half, we saw that Vazquez was a little bit, you know, new to the position, a little bit raw. There was a key chance from Alaves at around the 3rd minute where they had a cross from the left wing and they hit the crossbar. And the key thing there was that you can see that Militao was struggling, I think, versus Oliver. And you could see at moments Casemiro was playing as a sweeper throughout the game. And that shows for me, how tactically astute someone like Casemiro is. He understood that the right wing was constantly under pressure from Burke and was able to stop some of those attacks or at least press them so that Courtois would have easier chances to save. But it did show how weak the right flank was. And I think what Zidane went to at halftime was with the realization that although there's an offensive option there with Vazquez on the right to overlap with Asensio, who would cut inside as an inside forward, you
Yeah.
know, what Real Madrid really needed was for the right to shore up so that Alaves had no chances because Mendy, on the other hand, had a fantastic game. He shut down everything from the left. Many instances where he was able to physically overpower players, and with Varane there supporting him as the final line, it was too hard for them to press from the right hand side of their team. Instead, they went through their left, and I think on the second half, Zidane asked them to stay back and allow for Real Madrid to create more of their attacks through the left. One thing that's quite interesting for me is that as opposed to a team like Chelsea, where you can see Willian and Pulisic alternating on the wings, what Zidane likes to do is when he kind of identifies like a key maybe weakness in the defense, when he will actually ask the right winger to play out in the left for some moments in time. So you'll see in the second half there's a key instance here, for example, where Asensio drifts inwards to the left and he sees that there's an opportunity for him and Rodrigo to interplay effectively.
So sort of as a, could say, as a number 10, like Asensio drops into more of a number 10 role where he's closer to Rodrigo, or would you say that they're changing positions?
They're not changing positions. It's more where Asensio crowds the left, so he joins into the left for a moment in time, and
Okay.
they don't
Wow.
alternate. So that's why it's quite different to the way Chelsea plays, for example, where you'll see Willian on the left and Pulisic on the right.
Exactly. This is, I mean, no, this would allow for more bodies if you see a weakness on one side to throw in more bodies into that position, and with the quality that these players possess. And I feel like having an extra man there, the left wing lift back is not going to leave his position to come there to cover you. You have one more person to play football with and to find a gap or one of those killer passes to break through that sort of rigid defense. I think it's a genius tactic.
Absolutely. What I like about that is that you can see, for example, when you watch Chelsea and how they struggle in transition, it's because there's a midfielder who's always out of position, or both midfielders, for example, are trying to contribute to the attack. And what's the beauty of having the other winger join the flank, another flank temporarily for example, a play to develop, is that you still have your midfielders in the correct position, so that when you lose the ball in transition, the midfielders are there, and there's not that kind of space in the center of the field.
I think that's what it is, isn't it? Like, I mean, so you're making people further up, move and like shift positions, which doesn't necessarily cost you in defense. And that's also the worry of when someone's getting out of position that a side could be vulnerable. Like, but if you have like someone like Casemiro who can drop deep and Vazquez can be pushing their left winger and left back a little back, it allows for room for you to be able to attack on the left. And like with Asensio dropping in, helping interplay with Rodrygo, it worked, and that's credit to that.
So another thing that we'd like to talk about, I think to finalize is the game realistically seemed over in the second half. And what made it worse for a team like Alaves was the substitutions and the opportunity, for example, for Isco, Hazard, Raheem, and even Vinicius to come on the field and make sure that the game is pretty much impossible for a weaker side to play with. You have to deal with all these energized defensive players, and it seems like the momentum in games, post lockdown, seems to go too much towards the side that has a lead in the first half, in my opinion. How do you feel about that, Mehdi?
I do think so, and I feel like the team that leads in the first half generally are able to sustain uh, that momentum the next half with the added substitutes and also the water break. And generally, we can see it's like teams that who generally like to dominate. This allows them a bit more time. And if they lose those plays where they're not dominant anymore, the water breaks also comes into play, and it helps. You've seen that with Arsenal, and you can see like if they lose their momentum after the second half, these constant breaks and these obviously like we're bringing in subs. That's another break that comes in. It helps these teams be able to get some sort of control back, and I feel like it's interesting because it can give some teams an unbiased advantage, in my opinion.
Exactly. I think it's, it has to be something that people review this shouldn't be continued. We want to see, more comebacks in football. Obviously, many tactically astute managers are probably going to be in favor of things like the water break or the additional subs. But for the flavor of the game and for the average fan, I think it has to be removed. You want to see competitive games all round, and you don't want to see top teams dominate as easily as, for example, a side like Liverpool has this year.
I ag- I agree with you. I feel like they need to help more of the weaker teams or teams in the lower half than just a general to give like the strong teams more of an advantage to level out the flanks. There's already such a gulf in quality and like between the top
Absolutely.
sides and yeah, so it's unfair for them to get extra advantage while the rest suffer. Hopefully they'll consider something. We'll see what happens next season. We're still in the pandemic. It's worth noting that as well, but like I hope FIFA and in general the regulating bodies come to consensus where they can help the weaker teams